Welcome, besties, to episode 1 of what I'm calling group chats, where we break down dating, relationship, and marriage, tweets, Reddits, and actual video posts, story times. And we're going to talk about what went wrong, why it matters, and how you personally can learn from it and never ignore your gut again. Let's talk about what's really going on underneath this story that I found on Threads. So let's get into the setup of this. JMarie_1 over on Threads talked about how she met a guy on a Christian dating app. He sounded perfect on paper, intellectual, spiritual. He loved tea. He had one kid. He was book-centered, Bible-centered, and she tried to really be open with him and his life and how everything was going great initially. And just like with most dating interactions off of dating apps, it started out great. They had FaceTimed, they made plans, and they set up a perfect date. She was so excited about it. And then, of course, he decided that he couldn't wait to meet her, and he changed plans. This is important. She thought about it, and was like, no, I don't really feel comfortable doing that. Well, like a lot of us, she tried to be polite about it, and he literally lost his marbles. He got angry because she did not want to come to his house and exploded on her. Before we move on to what I have to think about it, I want you guys to go back and listen to what I said, maybe even pause the video and read the actual thread and see what stood out to you, and maybe what your bias showed about the interaction and what you thought was going to happen, and then let's get into my thoughts. Now, let's talk about what I think that this whole interaction reveals, especially about him getting angry. I think it reveals that his reaction definitely wasn't necessarily about the date. It was about access to her. He wanted her to come over to his house early for whatever reason, which to me was a red flag, because if you're saying that you're Christian, most Christians follow, not committing adultery or fornication. What was the reason that he really wanted her to come over to his house before the date that they had already planned, especially when it was their first interaction? And then when she decided that she wasn't comfortable with it, he lashed out because he was no longer in control or leading the conversation. And of course, he tried to clean it up with an apology, but you can't unshow people who you really are. And I know a lot of people are like, oh yeah, he's human, people make mistakes. That's true, but when it comes to people lashing out at people like that, especially people they don't know, you have to pay attention. There are a few things I want us to pay attention to also that are at play in this interaction when it comes to behavior patterns. Number one is the whole Christian woman to good girl people-pleasing complex. A lot of Christian women, and I would know because I was raised in a Christian household, are taught to be people pleasers, are taught to be submissive, especially to men and authority figures. And so people pleasers, as we've talked about, are often taught to ignore their discomforts, especially when someone else that they're talking to or interacting with seems nice. And that can put a lot of women, unfortunately, in danger, because you might perceive that this Christian man on this Christian app is nice. But what if he's just on the app to play and prey on the fact that more Christian women are submissive or are people pleasers, right? And so saying no sometimes as a people pleaser can feel like you're trying to start conflict, which again is something else that a lot of Christians don't want to do. They don't want to start conflict. They want to be nice to people. But not saying no is ignoring your level of self-protection when you're in these interactions with people that you really don't know well. And then the other thing that's in this interaction is this fear of being seen as being too difficult or maybe being too cautious. And it's like you don't trust this person and you're like, well, shouldn't I trust him? Because there's this level of bias about Christianity that's there that rationalizes that you don't need to feel unsafe with this person, when in reality you don't know them because you met them on an app. Which brings me to the entire lesson of this whole thing. One of the biggest takeaways that I want you to have as a woman that maybe is Christian or that struggles with being a good girl or a people pleaser is that it's to check your bias. Just because a man has a PhD or a nice car or a good job or is a Christian doesn't necessarily mean that they're safe. Also doesn't necessarily mean that they're kind. And also, I want you to learn the difference between niceness and kindness, because there is a difference. Being nice is about how people are perceiving you, and you are caring about how they're perceiving you, so you're acting nice. And kindness is actually the inherent value of being kind. You're doing it for the benefit of others. Those are two different motivations. So those are the two lessons right off the bat that I want you to learn. I thought that this man brought up a really good point, saying that it's worth reflecting, knowing that being Christian can sometimes cloud your judgment to see red flags in abusive men who share the same faith, when religious identity is often used as a shield and it becomes easier to excuse or overlook harmful behavior. And it's also important to remember that the right person, if you set the boundary, or if you set a boundary, is not going to punish you, is not going to threaten you, or is not going to explode on you for protecting your safety and your peace. And if they do, that is protection. That is redirection and rejection for your protection. So do not ignore it, or do not feel bad because you feel like this is not the right thing for you to do. Trust your discernment, trust your instincts, because it'll keep you safe. Let me know below if you enjoyed this video. As always, I will be talking more about dating, relationships, and marriage, as well as some of the behavior patterns that people kind of miss that can get them in trouble when they're dating and when they're married even, that can cause trouble down the line. And if this is something that you're struggling with, please comment below maybe some interactions you've had like this that you want to help warn people about. Yeah, and I can't wait to see you in episode 2. Bye.